capital cities, you'll hear tales of shady deals and conflicts of interest, perhaps calls to drain the swamp. Let me tell you a story of what many believe to be the biggest corruption scandal ever anywhere in the world. This bribery and money laundering scheme spread throughout Latin America, but the epicenter is in Brazil, and it has already cost that country billions of dollars. In just one part of this sprawling scheme, the Brazilian construction conglomerate, Odebrecht, was found to have paid $788 million in bribes to various officials and was fined $3.5 billion in 2016. According to the Globe and Mail, 5 former Brazilian presidents, nearly 1 out of 3 cabinet ministers, and almost 1 out of 3 senators have been indicted or investigated. It toppled the president of Peru, landed Ecuador's vice president in jail, and led to the impeachment of the Brazilian president Dilma Rousseff. Sergio Moro, a federal judge in Brazil, presided over much of the investigation. So how did they do it?
To be honest, the investigation started very small. It was an investigation about professional money launderers. But following the money, the investigation grew, and wow, for all of us, police officers, prosecutors, judges, not only me, but the other judges involved in the case, for all of us, it was a huge surprise.
It all began in the capital city of Brasilia in the most mundane of places, a gas station that had once housed a car wash. In what came to be known as Operation Car Wash, the police tapped the phones of a money transfer business housed there, and in 2012, they heard the voice of Alberto Yusuf, an infamous money launderer, the New York Times reported. Anyone linked to him immediately came under suspicion. In 2014, police arrested Yusuf and Paulo Roberto Costa, a former executive of Brazil's state-run oil company Petrobras. Yusuf had given the executive a rather conspicuous gift, a Range Rover worth more than $100,000. Now, this is where Judge Moro was key. He kept them in jail before their trials, something nearly unheard of for Brazil's rich and powerful. Then he used their detentions to employ another relatively new legal innovation in Brazil, plea deals.
These both criminals, they decide to cooperate with the prosecutors.
That was the turning point. In the end, the investigation uncovered a cartel of at least 16 Brazilian companies that rigged the bidding on Petrobras contracts, according to the New York Times. They created the illusion of competition, but decided between themselves who got the contracts, which were wildly inflated in price. Petrobras officials received a cut of those inflated contracts. Much of that money was then diverted to politicians and political parties. It was all a game, and the players robbed the public of billions, literally.
We have these high politicians, very powerful politicians, very powerful businessmen who unfortunately committed bribery crimes and money laundering, and there is no excuse for that. And they have to pay the price for their wrongdoing.
For corrupt officials and businessmen, it was cooperate or perish. Scores chose to cooperate. Revelations in the press read like something out of a detective novel. Payments were made in fine wines and sports cars, yachts and helicopters. Police snatched so much art, they had to put it in a museum. Then, at the end of 2015, a sitting senator was arrested for obstruction of justice. He pointed his finger at a political untouchable, Luiz Ignacio Lula da Silva, the former president, the leftist lion, the man President Obama once called the most popular politician in the world. Lula stood accused of masterminding the scheme. Moro set his sights on Lula, and the two battled it out in the courtroom and in the press. In 2017, the unthinkable happened. Moro convicted Lula of corruption in one of several cases against him. In April, amid a throng of supporters, Lula, who says he is innocent, surrendered to serve his 12-year sentence.
What was very important in Brazil is that we got a lot of support, and we still have a lot of support from Brazilian public opinion.
Over the course of the investigation, Moro became a hero, and millions came out into the streets in support of the investigators and to protest official corruption. The story is not over. The Petrobras scandal has led to discoveries about other bribery schemes. One of those led to charges of corruption against the sitting president of Brazil, Michel Temer, who has evaded trial. Moro's critics say this investigation was bad for Brazil. It led to tens of thousands of lost jobs from abandoned Petrobras contracts. It sullied Brazil's name, they said, and set the country up for years of political volatility and economic uncertainty. Moro doesn't see it that way. In an interview to Bloomberg, he said simply, "Would it have been better to leave Richard Nixon at the presidency?"
By one side, you can say that all these cases of corruption, they are shameful, but there is no shameful on the enforcement of the law. So Brazil is doing what is necessary to be done. It's a great achievement for Brazilian democracy.